Well, good day, everyone. It's the Two Ordinary Cops, and we're back yet once again. Now, we're going to pass it on. We've got Cath here tonight again, but I'm just going to pass over to Damo for now because we've had a bit of sad news this week. Damo, do you want to fill us in a bit more?
Yeah, mate, for sure. So for anyone watching the news, obviously we're a few weeks behind now, so it's going to be a couple of weeks back now. But on the 10th of November, Ian Levers passed away. He was the long-term Queensland Police Union president and has been very vocal and very inspirational in a number of very big, high-profile matters that have occurred within not just Queensland Police, but also the Zach Rolfe matter. He was very vocal in that as well. So and also president of the Police Federation of Australia. So a person who always had the backs of coppers. And yeah, he's lost his life on Monday, the 10th of November. So I think we need to pay respects to him. I've met him a couple of times. I know, Cath, you've had a bit to do with him.
Yep.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was quite a shock, wasn't it? It was a terrible shock, actually. It was just so hard to believe. And of course, I met Ian on the night that Brady was murdered. I'd obviously heard of him and knew of him, but to meet him when I did, and there's a funny story in relation to that, but I won't go into it, but no, and he was there to offer me support and was only a phone call away for me. So it's just terrible. Yeah, it's just such a shock.
Yeah, and obviously he's put himself in there, and obviously that was a huge matter that you were involved in with the murder of Brett. And then same thing again, the William Billis shootings, 2022. Once again, front and centre national, basically head. He was a talking head for Queensland, basically on behalf of the members, especially. Obviously, the commissioner had a lot to do with it, but for the members, he was front and centre. So he's done a lot for police during those worst possible times. So yeah, a bit of a tribute to Ian Levers.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And look, I'll just add in there before you go on. I even got to meet him. He helped out when my ex-wife had cancer. So yeah, they actually helped us out with accommodation and all that sort of stuff in Queensland for the operation. So yeah, I just had utmost respect for him and just lovely. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, Shilty, I think a lot of people, a lot of coppers would have similar stories about little things that that man did to just help them in a time of need.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll move on. Obviously, last week, Cath, we went through and both of us got shivers listening to that job. We can just, not that we've been there, but we've certainly been in similar sort of, not being shot at necessarily, but certainly extremely high-risk situations. And we sort of, I don't know about you, Shilty, but I was getting adrenaline rushes listening to
it. Yeah, definitely.
It was just, I can picture the problem. I've been in 1,000 pursuits, so I completely understand. You're expecting some outcome and you get a very different one, and all of a sudden your whole world's tipped on its head. So obviously we went right through that, and we finished off, we were talking about the adrenaline and how you dealt with that. And I think it was really pertinent. I've said previously that the stress response that everyone accepts is that fight, flight, freeze. I used to add another one on, and I call it focus. So there's fight, flight, freeze, and focus. So, and I think what you summed up really concentrated on the focus. Would you agree with that? You were saying that you actually felt really, really in control, and you made some really good, and your brain was working at that moment.
Yeah, and so of course I've read up a lot, listened a lot with how your body does react, and you can't help either way what you do. Apparently, just whatever happens.
Yeah.
But and as I think I did say, because I've been into meditation for a lot of years, together with I guess the training that you do, with the police. I was able to go, right, what do I need to do now? What happens next? What do we have to do? Assessing the situation. And I put it down to probably, a sporting background because I've played hockey all my life at certain levels. So I think team sport, a lot to do with it, but plus the meditation is maybe what I think probably helped me on that day.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So what I like is that there's a bit of chronology. Sorry, Shilty, you got something?
Yeah, mate. I was just going to say also, like every time you go to a job, it just adds that bit more experience. Every single time you react to something, and I think that also helps as well. Because just remember towards the end of my career, I was so calm in even high
Yeah,
risk situations, and even to the point that I thought something was wrong with me, because I was so calm.
Mm.
So it's yeah, it just yeah. I mean, and of course, I'm not educated in the way the brain works and all that sort of thing, but I mean, Damon and I had a beer one day, and I said, "There's something seriously wrong with me," and he just turned to me and said, "I do exactly the same thing." So
Yeah,
mm, mm.
yeah,
but yeah, I think there's
Yeah,
a lot of experience.
and
Mm.
that's a good point, Chelsea. Because yeah, I guess that's right. We were kind of used to doing these type of jobs with, violent people, as police are, I suppose. And so maybe that's it too. Yeah, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary in dealing with someone that was extremely violent. Yes, of course, it was out of the ordinary, and what ended up happening at the end of the day, no one would have picked that. I'm not saying that,
No.
but possibly that's an explanation. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think that sort of lines up nicely for the chronology of what you would have gone through. Obviously, the incident itself, the pursuit, which is pretty standard. I mean, that if anything, that's a pretty low end pursuit. I mean, the actual pursuit itself was no road rules are broken. We're still going. Okay, a couple of stingers missed. We're trying to, we're going to box him in here, whatever. Obviously, it then went from about 50 to 1,000 at the end,
Mm.
and the worst possible outcome. And then obviously an ongoing siege, and then him being shot dead by specialist police later in the night, or the next morning actually.
Next morning.
So
Yeah.
what I think, I know we're really interested to hear this because I've spoken to a few people involved in critical incidents, and they go, "Yeah, the incident was one thing, but it was all the aftermath. It was the after the few hours and days and weeks immediately preceding where things became real." If
Mm.
you're comfortable, Kath, do you want to explain through what happened after the incident?
So directly after we sort of ran out to the outer cordon, and not I didn't know the condition of Brett. I knew he would be in a bad way, but I didn't yet know. And basically, that's all I wanted to sort of know. And the people that, the police that one I'm still good friends with at the station that drove me back. She was like, "Kath, yeah, I'm not sure, but I guess she assumed that he hadn't made it, but she wasn't sure." And your brain doesn't go there, I don't think, because that's just too bad, too terrible to think of. Um, and I guess it's just surreal. It's all just surreal because you hear about this on the news. This happens to other people,
Mm-hmm.
not it doesn't happen to me or happen to Brad or it doesn't happen to us. Um, and then, as I said, I didn't know until I'd been back at the station. Um, and I guess probably deep down, maybe I did realise he'd gone, but it wasn't until my friend from work rang me and had said, "Kath, yes, he is gone." She wasn't working that day, but she'd heard, and it was her that said. I said, I wouldn't say her name. "Tell
Yeah.
me it," and she said, "Yeah, he's dead, Kath." It's like, oh my god, no, it was surreal and hard to get your head around that. And then after it's such a whirlwind because then you're taken away, you tested, you're on test, check your system, then you sort of looked after, I guess, until you interviewed, and I had to keep what I was wearing on for until I was photographed, which included Brett's blood on my hands, to be honest, and up my arms. So it was all just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
yeah,
all just a blur.
it,
Um,
it,
Yeah. That's so yeah. I
yeah.
obviously not. Ah, shit. I've been involved in that stuff, not to that level, not with a dead police officer who you helped and who's been shot dead. But what I'm knowing is I know the bloody process. I know exactly the process you're talking about,
Mm,
um, and it's so clinical. And I think what makes it hard too is, especially for the police who have to carry that role out. Um, it's you're torn because you must do your job. You must investigate. You must collect the evidence. But for the person who's gone through it, it's like there, but for the grace of God, I wear the same uniform. It's like
Yeah,
you
and
how would I feel?
the people that I dealt with that night were lovely. I mean, everyone. It's the one time they talk about the police family, the blue family, and that's what that means. And people were crying. People were just in shock as well from high-ranking officers. The commissioner at the time, he came, Ian Levers. He was there in this little room that myself and a few girls from work were there with me. So everyone was feeling it.
Yeah.
And that
Ian Stewart was it at the time, the commissioner?
yeah, it was, yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess and a deputy came with him, and I guess that was comforting to know you weren't on your own,
Mm.
because you're sort of Susie, of course, and she was elsewhere with other people, but it's sort of all about what just happened to you, and meaning me and Brett. So it's weird to be that person in the middle of all that. It's surreal,
Yeah.
very surreal. And
Yeah.
then you're just a senior Connie doing your job. And then all of a sudden, Bretty and I, both of us, we're just senior Connies doing our job. And then all of a sudden, Brett's name is known everywhere and,
Mm.
known as Brett Forte's partner, which is still a label, I guess, that I have to this day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were probably guilty of that. I think we would have gone, well, here we are interviewing the partner of Brett Fort when
And
both
that's
of you
it's not a
job.
bad thing. No, it's not a bad thing. But what I'm getting at is, as I sort of said last time we spoke, got up that morning and Bretty and Susie would have been the same. You're saying goodbye to your kids. You're getting your kids ready for school. You get to work. And then it's that day that this does happen and it happens to you.
Yeah.
It's, why? I don't know. And then, the other thing, like I said, the bullets that hit our vehicle, 27, he fired a number of shots, 27 of them hitting our vehicle. Something I had to deal with. How come it didn't? I didn't get one of them, and already got a few of them.
Yeah. So just a miracle, like absolute miracle, really.
I'm not a religious person, but I don't know how the hell that happened.
Yeah.
It's
so obviously, I'll just relate a bit to that too. So a lot of coppers can relate to being involved in they might have been assaulted or something similar to that. I've been involved in a number of incidents where it's been a critical incident. We've had police badly hurt or, surrounded or hit by vehicles or stuff like that. I've been involved in a few of them. And the response, you're right. It's sort of like you're almost, this is a whole different level. I'm not even relating it. It's just that response and the surreality, if that even is a word, of that immediate aftermath where, the commissioner has come to a couple of these things and said, I want to make sure everyone's okay. And we're like, we're all good, sir. We had them in the room. We had the guys there. We were taking their statements and we were surrounding them. We went out and responded to the community. I'm talking, being surrounded in small towns in the NT, very violent places and then going back out and showing that force. And I can understand that real surrealness up when it all settles of, holy shit, we're in the news. We're national news.
Yeah, that's right. National news. Yeah. And I think I might have even mentioned last time we spoke, even the amount of flowers and well wishes and even people signing in for bail were apologising. We're so, and some came in that knew Bretty and I that, we'd done raids on their places or, all that sort of thing. It's kind of nice that for some people, not everyone, but that kind of doesn't then matter, it's about humanity.
Yeah.
And the good side of people. And that was really special, and that wasn't lost on me then, and still isn't lost on me now.
No.
Especially how Toowoomba reacted to this,
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
So follow that post immediate. So you've been awake now. You're going through all that stuff. You haven't been in bed yet. You haven't been home yet.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. Where it was okay. You can go home now, Cath. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, geez, I think it wasn't till 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't think. I don't even know how husband found out, actually, I think I rang him as soon as I got out as soon as I got out to the outer cordon, and I quickly rang and said, something's happened. I'm okay physically, but Brettie's in a bad way. I can't sort of speak. So, then, he got on to the rest of the family, and then he made his way to the station, but I couldn't really see him, couldn't really, speak to him. So him, my people closest to me outside of work, my sister was at my house. I get home at 2:00, and then the emotion kind of maybe hits because you're in your vulnerable place. My kids were, young at that. I think they might have been 11, 12 or something. So they didn't really know. They're in bed, thank God. And then going through the first time, like speaking my story to my family. And then, of course, the emotion from them, because it hits home with them that how close they were to losing me. It's a big deal. And I do remember I started to, that night before I tried to go to sleep, I journaled, and it's something that I hadn't really ever done before, but I grabbed this old notebook and I started journaling, because never again would I be in that position where it's just happened and it's fresh and what am I feeling? And I do sometimes even go back to that and go, oh my God, thank God I'm not back I'm not back at the start. Or when I hear different police shootings, one thing I always think, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not back at that painful place again, because it was, or I message Susan and go, God, I'm so glad that's not us back there, because right, it was the start of some ridiculous pain in a lot of ways, of course, the biggest being losing Brett. And I guess then the other side to that is your family, like, my kids then, I think they went off to school the next day, and of course it filtered through, and they're like, oh, people are saying this, mum, and that, and, that he led you there, and that, so that's the other part of it, then telling your young children, how not to worry, that, to putting it away, that they understand what's happened to you, but it doesn't, you don't want to concern them, give them the gory details, but then they're going to hear it anyway, because it was something in Toowoomba, it was big news, and it was all over the news, and Brettie's face, and it's a big deal to, and my elderly parents, them having to deal with their daughter nearly nearly dying, and it's a big deal. There's so much more to it than you kind of realise until you're in it, and the other people you want to be okay. Um, so having the support of people around that time, and people were good, people were kind, both within and outside of the service. People were lovely, actually, and God, that helped. That really did help to know that people did give a shit when push came to shove. People cared what happened, and wanted to check you're okay. And you know, we're mourning Brett, and we're leaving flowers at the memorial outside the station. So that was all the people that did that, and that was really that's really nice. Yeah, and that means a lot. It meant a lot to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And still, when Brett's honoured, like if his name is mentioned, say on a Police Remembrance Day, sometimes his name is mentioned occasionally. It means a lot when whoever does mention his name. It's it means a lot to me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just something, Kath, that I'm not a psychologist, but I am interested in the psychology of how people relate to things and how they, I suppose, process things after an event like that. I know when I was studying to do my detectives, there was a lot of talk. It was, I think it was something put out by the guy that orchestrated the Daniel Morecambe case and all that sort of thing, because he helped train us in investigating and all that sort of stuff. But it talks about the mind and how it processes, and a lot of the time it takes the mind at least 24 hours to start processing and figuring out how everything happened, because of course your brain's been traumatized by this event. And they talk about, like, say, victims of rape and all that sort of thing, because it's so traumatic, or being shot at like you were, and then Brett dying, it takes a while for the mind to actually settle and put it in order. Can you relate to that at all?
Yeah. I was even step by step, even on that night though, I was pretty certain. I know what you're saying, but even in the first interview, most things I did remember, and different little nuanced pieces of information I did remember. Yeah, a few things came after. And and on we just, you forget what you had for lunch yesterday, but then how can I remember in detail all these things that happened, even back then? And because when something is so significant, you keep it there. It's too important that you're not, that you forget. I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know if I explained that right, but yes, as far as that's concerned, yeah. There probably was a few things I've gone, that's right, I didn't tell them that, and then I think I was interviewed twice, so that I could, recall a couple of other things, but most of it I pretty much did have, even a few hours after. Pretty much I did have, yeah, I'd have to say. Yeah, definitely.
When did the first interview happen?
That night. So
Okay.
a couple of hours, after, yeah, and I didn't go home until after that. And that was okay. I was okay to do that. Yep. Maybe it helped me. I don't know, to be able to download that in the right space. To then be able to emotionally process it after, if that makes sense, maybe. Yeah.
So that obviously, that it's a witness statement at this stage. You're not considered to be, you've done nothing wrong. You're the victim of this incident. So it's very much a statement. What can you, obviously, what really interesting, that personal touch where you've now got home, you've got family support around you, where you've taken the uniform off, you've had a shower, you've cleaned up. If you're happy, what was your husband's experience at this point?
Well, bless him, he's a builder, so he's got no copper instincts, or he's not that way. He's not built that way, which I'm so grateful for. And a lot of my great mates in the coppers that were there, I was lucky because I had them. They were suffering the loss of Brett as well. They were first on scene, some of them. So I had them on one side, and then on the other side was my family and best friends outside of the police. So I was well supported in those terms. And I guess it's more emotional with those people, because they're not police. So, and as I referred back to my parents, I was worried about their well-being, because they were sort of elderly and dealing with the shock of that. I didn't want I didn't want their health to suffer. But back to my husband, no, he so it was perfect. He's not a copper. He doesn't think like a copper. So he managed it really, really well, actually. He's a good man, and he showed his worth absolutely in so many ways, around it since the incident. And he's been by my side the whole way. So I am so goddamn grateful to that man, and the strength he has shown for me. His name's Mark, by the way. The strength he's shown for me, and to, the kids are now 20 and 22, and they're pretty strong kids as well. Which, my psychiatrist has often said, look, you're lucky, because a lot of marriages don't kind of survive trauma to this extent. A lot of people, marriages can't survive that. So I guess we're lucky that we went the opposite for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I mean, obviously, there's a bit of a gender thing there. Like I'm very protective of my wife, but she wasn't the cop. I was the cop. She was a school teacher, so it was there's that. But I know that Mark would be extremely protective of you, but it would also be that you're the copper. So it's a bit of a different. So it's interesting just to get that sort of, because he's naturally going to be protective of his wife. I might be generalising, it might be old-fashioned, but I don't know many husbands who aren't like that. So, and that's sort of what we're meant to do. So,
you're right. No, you're mentioning that, Damo. You're definitely right in that, because it is reversed in that sense. I'm the one that my life was threatened, and and he's the man. So whereas people, old-fashioned, whatever you want to call it, that's right. But it is, bottom line, it is like that. It was like that. I was the one that was threatened in that way, and he's my husband that wants to protect me. It's funny in that sense. Yeah.
So I just an interesting little thing, because I know that I like you, and I think Schultze was the same. Very, very proactive in keeping family life and work life very, very separate. And this is a time where you sort of can't, because it's so public and it's so extreme that there's that aspect to it. But I know we've spoken about you. Obviously, you've gotten home, you've gone to bed. So just run us through the next couple of days. What's
Yeah.
happening?
So it was the next day, back at the TCS office, and everyone paid our office due respect. God, people made food for us, dinners for the ones of us in TCS. And we were just all there together. There were some partners were there. The doors were shut, and I guess we were downloading and just dealing with it together. And I won't say his name, but one of Brady's best mates at work, and very big support, beautiful man. I saw this minute he broke. We were standing there and talking, and then I just saw him, and basically he sort of nearly fell to the floor, and we had to get him. It was like it hit him. And it was a really powerful moment. And I'll never forget, when I saw that man break, and I don't think he'll ever forget it either. It was, it was, God, yeah, it's taking me back there now. It was amazing, to be honest. And then by this stage, Brett's mum and dad and brothers and their wives had turned up. So they came into the tactical crime squad office, and that was extremely emotional. I knew all about Brett's brothers because Brett, spoken to me quite often about them, but I'd never met them until that day, and it was meeting them for the first time like that under those circumstances. It was incredible, and from that time on, I've been tight with the Forte family since that time, I guess, because we went through this terrible trauma together. Brett's dad calls me his daughter whenever I see them, because they're heavily involved in hockey, in Redcliffe Hockey Club, and I'm hockey in Toowoomba, so we've got sort of a hockey connection as well, regardless of Brett even. So, so even we still message a fair bit and see each other when we can, not often, but and sharing that moment with them was incredible too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like obviously the days proceed. It's just I remember when Brett Meredith was killed in Catherine. It was a different circumstance. It was an off-duty incident, but the whole station was together. It was similar. I'm just hearing what you're saying about family that you're first meeting. It just resonates. Obviously, it wasn't an operational matter that happened. He wasn't murdered. All he was manslaughtered, but he wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't an operational thing. There was other people involved. It had its similarities, but I just remember it was a twilight zone for a long time, and it took a long time for normality to even remotely return, and that was nowhere near to this level. So, obviously, just talk us through those weeks when did the skerrick of normality return?
Well, so firstly, just back to your first point, and even people that are still at Toowoomba Station that were there when it happened, it's not uncommon. Some of them, they remember where they were. They remember hearing the pursuit being called. They remember then hearing the news when they were at work. A good friend, she was in the watch house at the time, and she talks about being told when they were told just the feeling, and just for days it was just like a bit like a ghost town. People weren't talking. People didn't know what to think.
Yeah.
So as you say, normality. Oh God, it was a while. I think it was the second day that the second day after it happened. Again, Mark had driven me to work, and I remember I just sort of sat in his ute in front of the station for I felt like ages, and absolutely, I was so sad. I was just crying. I think maybe that's when something hit me, and that would have been 2 days. So it would have been the Wednesday. I just remember that. Sitting there at the front, just uncontrollable in the passenger seat. I'll never forget that particular time. But no, normality, no, not for a long time. not for a long time, because his funeral was in the Wednesday after. I think it was the 1st or 2nd of June then, Wednesday week. And because that was massive as well, God, it was still surreal, coppers lined up for God knows how long, as we sort of drove behind the family, and then we sort of drove behind. It was, oh God, emotional. You know how emotional funerals are anyway, but when you're right in the middle of it, bloody
Oh, yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Yeah, I'll
Well,
never.
that's where we kind of link in there a little bit, because
Mm,
Shilsey had messaged me the day of the incident and gone, there's been a shooting, a Queensland copper's been shot just out of Toowoomba. And I was in Alice and I was on duty, and and then Shilsey, you were living in Brisbane at the time. And then he texted me again and's gone, mate, the cops passed away, or sort of thing. And anyway, we looked into it a bit, and look, I didn't know any detail, didn't know any identities. I just knew that this had happened, and there were police, and it was in Toowoomba. So that had really, I mean, it piqued my interest regardless, but it had really piqued because it was Toowoomba.
yeah, yeah,
And then obviously the reporting came through that it was Brett Forte. Okay, so we know the name of the victim, and then the offender got that name of the offender was released, and I remember that moment I mentioned in the last one. I knew Ricky Madison, and I
yeah,
remember going, holy shit, because I mean, my knowledge of him was a bit of a drug peddling, bit of a man about town, getting a few blues, bit of a standover, but nothing, just a bloody low end street offender, not even
yeah,
an offender, just a street dude who we would come across as security guards in front of pubs. That was how I knew him, and then basically that was it. And to see this level of offending, I was
mm,
gobsmacked. But we then made the call that we're going to go to this funeral. So I think we should. And I got clearance by the association and then the commissioner up there to go to to get granted a special leave to go to the funeral. So, and we got authorised to wear uniform. Sorry, was the next part. And that was, Shilsey. The last time you wore the uniform was Brett Fort's funeral.
It was. It was a very special time for me to be able to actually be there for that funeral, and I still remember, like, even it was. I mean, I can't even comprehend what it was like for you, Kath, but like, to me, it was a very emotional day.
yeah,
Um, it was, and I didn't know either of them, but it's part of the Blue family, and it's to see all those officers lined up and pay their respect and all that sort of thing. It was just, I can't even explain the
yeah,
feeling. It's
yeah.
just so intense.
And then you put the bagpipes in on top of that. It's
Oh yeah,
every time I hear the bagpipes now, it just takes me back to Brett, no matter
Yeah,
where. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But you said there before, when because Ricky was shot the next day by CERT, and I tell you what, they are brave men. You don't know their names, you don't know the jobs that they do. They can't get recognition. Oh my God, they're so brave. They turn up to these situations that are too dangerous for general duties coppers to do, but they
yeah,
turn up, no fuss. They do what they need to do. They obviously then have to deal with what they have to deal with, any fallout, emotionally, whatever. Yeah, hats off to them. I really realised what those blokes did too. Bloody amazing.
yeah.
And because they had got there pretty quick, because CERT already had an interest in him. He'd been subject of CERT, um, a CERT action. They already knew of him.
Mm.
So they were aware when the pursuit started, and they basically gunned it and got up there. Brady was already shot at that time. The choppers turned up, the police choppers turned up, and he was firing. Ricky was sort of firing from the little place he'd made his way to, the stronghold. He was firing at the choppers. Throughout the night, he was firing at the Bearcat. Basically, they thought the window was going to go, like he was firing with these high round weapons.
Mm.
So it was full on. It was like I remember at the time one of them saying it was like grand final. It was the grand final of what, I mean. Obviously, since then there's been the Tara shootings as well. But they're just, oh my God, I was in awe of what those people
Yeah,
do. Yeah,
yeah,
so brave what they do.
I won't mention his name, but I actually know one of the guys that went up
Yeah,
there after me. I'm friends with him, and
yep,
he's just a fantastic, absolute legend. Um,
yeah,
and how he processes stuff. And yeah, I've
yeah,
had no beers with him, but he's a top bloke.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad you mentioned the cert action the next day, and that afternoon through the night into the next day,
yeah,
um, because like you say, it is in the shadows. And I know we've mentioned TRG, so every jurisdiction's got they've got a team that does the same job. They just call it different names.
yeah.
Our TRG, I've worked with them as well. Very, very professional, very humble, quiet.
Very
But,
humble. Yeah,
yeah,
just really lovely blokes. You sort of don't know what to expect, and you sort of
mm,
see them from a distance. But then um, getting to speaking to their bloody good blokes I dealt with. They were really had dealings with really nice people. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was that's a straight up war zone. They also own they've got to keep their game face on. They're still very much involved in a life and death situation, knowing that a fellow police officer has been
yeah,
killed.
yeah.
I'm a
That's right.
police officer from another jurisdiction, and I'm emotionally distracted by that.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah,
Imagine you're only an hour down the road. They wear the same uniform. But game face, boys, job's on.
yeah,
It could be a few of us going into the ground if we don't keep focused here. So,
yeah, that's right.
um,
They're just so professional. Just oh my
yeah.
god,
And
just
then obviously, like you mentioned, Tara, so the William Billis shootings in 2022,
yeah,
same thing. They know that two coppers have been killed there, and
mm,
they're going straight in on top of that,
yeah,
and it's an absolute hornet's nest.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
So,
Special individuals, I reckon. Yeah,
sorry, Cass, say again.
yeah. They're special individuals.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely, and very
Yeah.
humble. Yeah, I thought they were
Mm,
lovely.
yeah. So,
Mm.
obviously, we move forward. You mentioned the funeral. So, you said obviously a very emotional day. I'm imagining, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're still in this twilight zone. Am I right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh God, absolutely. And I guess the funny thing is, not funny at all, but the thing is, uh, that that eyes are on you, and that's hard too. You just want to keep to yourself. You don't necessarily, you know, you don't necessarily want to put your head up. It was just I need to just deal with this myself, but you kind of don't get the opportunity to do that, do you? Because all this has to happen.
Mm,
Um, so it's a very oh god, it's a surreal place to be in.
mm,
Yeah, and it was, and of course, you think back, there were, politicians and all these very important people at Brett's funeral, and that was funny because he would be like, "What the hell?" He's such a character. The thought of
mm.
having these kind of people at Brett's funeral all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Been like having a good laugh anyway. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So I think a lot of people talk about this, and obviously, we'll just go through. I think what we're trying to do here is just show the absolute humanity of this process. So many people watch the news and go, police were involved in this, blah, 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 blah. No one thinks that, well, no, Cath and Brett were involved in this. And now Cath's
yeah,
burying her workmate. So picture your workmate sitting at the desk next to you on whatever job you have, or on the
Yeah,
shovel next to you at the job site. All of a sudden, not only are you burying them because they've been murdered at their workplace, but they're now national news. Everything you're doing is being broadcast on every station. The entire funeral is
yeah,
televised. Everything
yeah,
about it is public. You guys are very much human. These are human beings involved in this. And normally, just anonymous people in the crowd. Yeah, sure, you wear a uniform that makes people look at you, but they're looking at the uniform. They're not looking at you. They're just looking at the uniform. Yep. I used to say it, wherever we go, we make a scene. So when the police pull up, we could be going to buy a bloody coffee. I bet you way more people watched me get a coffee than watched anyone else getting coffee just in
yeah,
corporate wear. So
yeah. That's right.
it's like you make a scene everywhere you go. So all of a sudden, it's not just the uniform. It's they know who you are. They know who Brett is, and it's this you're thrust into this media spotlight. But that all steadies off. That all comes to a close eventually. Sure, there'll be snippets. There'll be little things coming back. Obviously, you go through a coronial inquest process, and that all becomes back to the news again. But prior to that, your anonymity sort of comes back a little bit. But the fact is, you've still been through that process. Do you want to talk us through that? Like after the funeral, when people are starting to go back to normality, what's happening then?
Yeah, I guess, and life has to go on for other people, but you're still stuck in this place where it's kind of like, well, well, hang on a minute, this has happened, and I'm not ready to. I'm not ready to move on like that yet. I've still got to deal with here a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's look, and it is. It's a hard one. It's a really hard one because I was still in TCS until I left a handful of months later. But that was my safe place in dealing with that because I had the people around me. As I said, my mates from work that were dealing with the loss as well. So I kind of wasn't on my own. It was like, oh, I've got these guys with me. I'm happy to be here at work because I'm with them today. And one of the blokes that Scotty Hill that I mentioned last time we spoke, who was one of the guys that came, marched into that bloody shit show to help get Brady out. It might have been even July, and there was another shoot that him and I were working together. And old mate, apparently, he's driving around Toowoomba, and he had a bit of a balaclava he wore across his face with a teeth, with the fake teeth in it. So it was a little bit scary looking. And then he had a gun as well. And Hilly and I were working together, and it was like, this is ridiculous. And I always remember people and other coppers in Toowoomba all realised it was Hilly and I, and they were just so caring. They sort of got to where they could to relieve us from being the lead vehicle. And I remember at the end of when we were able to stop, pull over, I was shaking uncontrollably. I felt sick in the guts. Hilly and I weren't allowed to work together after that. And I will never forget that particular pursuit and how I reacted was totally opposite to how I would have any other time. But it was like only not long after, and I'm like, holy shit, what's going to happen here? Whereas once you wouldn't have even thought you're in a pursuit, it's going to end somehow. Either they're going to run or something's going to happen, whatever. You don't actually think it's going to end up with us being shot at.
Yeah.
I remember in that second pursuit, not long after, it was like, holy shit, this is happening again. My brain went to, oh my God, no, this is happening again.
Which is, of course it did. It would be.
Well, of course it did. I was quite shaken up about that. Yeah. That was tough. So I guess life does get. Does it ever get back to normality? No, it doesn't. Look, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. There's no two ways about that. It changes, and it's what's now your new normal. And I guess that's where the work comes into it. You got to, whether it be counselling you have to do and whatever you have to do to work out where the new normal is for you, what being a police officer is then for you, what it looks like. Unfortunately, I didn't want to leave TCS, but unfortunately that's kind of the way a few things worked out that I kind of had to. My decision, but I had to, which I don't think that helped me in my recovery because that's where I needed to be. That was my connection to Brett. We sat beside each other. Our little corra holes were beside each other. That was firstly my connection to him, and secondly, the other people there were suffering his loss as well. So being with them was really important to me, and that was, until I left. I don't know, maybe in the November of 2017, October maybe, and that definitely didn't help. It felt like I felt homesick. When I left and I actually went and worked in district office, I felt a homesick feeling, and even seeing one of them, one of my TCS mates, was quite emotional for me because I wanted to be there with them because that was part of my healing. Anyway, that's a different story, but unfortunately that's, that was tough. That was really tough, actually. That was really tough. Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of it. That's what I'm getting at is that there's a human here. You need some normality. You need to be around the people who get it. I think from what I'm hearing there is that, and we always talk about this, and my experience was always we could go to some horrendous jobs. I mean, bloody hell, horrendous jobs. And it was okay because we're with the crew that was there. So we got it. We all understood. I mean, obviously there was a very small number of people who were there that day when Brett was shot, when that whole incident took place. But the people who were there 100% get it. So to then move on and people go, oh, that's Cath, was with Brett, when he got shot. So that becomes your identity a bit. But the guys who you're working with might wear the uniform, but they don't get it.
No, that's right. They don't get it. And so other TCS, as you know, some are, to this very day, to this day, are my very best dear friends, and one of my mates. I know he suffered dreadfully because they came from another way. They were joining the pursuit, but they came from another way, another direction, and there was a big area of as it was a farmland, and he could hear me calling for urgent. He could hear the gunfire, and him not being able to get to me, oh no, absolutely affected him. And he's not the only one, but because him and I were so tight, and he always, he couldn't get to me, so he had to deal with that demon as well. He, yeah. And there was a number of stories like that. I tried to get to you, Cath, and I to help you, and I couldn't. Some guys tried to come from the other way down Wallace Road, but were forced back because of the gunfire. So it doesn't affect it affects a lot of people, and then coppers go home and they've got their wives, and their wives are affected by it was Breddy this time that went, but it could have been their husband, or something, so it really has such a flow-on effect for so many people that you don't even realise, even until a few years later, the effect that it has on a greater community.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the partners there, because I know that as coppers we always tried to shelter them so much, but we were lucky because they didn't know. They had no idea what we were talking. We might have been to a hell of a job, but they never found out about it because it wasn't in the news. Or if it was a mention. Yeah. And my wife never watched the news, so she would have never found out. But she used to find out things from third parties, or I saw Damo's back in the news. What was going on with that job with this guy happened? And then she'd go, "Oh, you didn't mention that." And I said, "Well, no, I did mention a lot of things. That's just another one I didn't mention." But
yeah, that's right.
There was no hiding from this one. It was.
No, there was no hiding. Yeah, and what you say is right, Damo, and that where you bring in the dark humour of policing, and that's why, because we're with our mates we work with every day, and that's how we deal with that. Whereas something as big as this, it's not dealt with that way,
Yeah, no.
Well and truly not dealt with that way.
No, it's like, I get it. I can completely comprehend it. I mean, I know I relate to the Brett Meredith when he was killed in 2009, 2010. It was literally New Year's Eve, so it was 09-10. I just know that surreal feeling where everyone we were certainly territory news, so we were in the news day after day after day, and it was, there were cameras around, and it was like our little protective bubble had been split open a bit, and it was. I understand. Obviously, yours was on a much grander scale, obviously very national and a lot of interest and very personal, but very public as well. So I can sort of understand. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies because I can picture what you're talking about in that office. Like, I just can see it.
Yeah.
But I remember one thing that then, and I would like your comment on this too, would be, but we're the police and crime don't stop. So there's still GDs going to jobs. TCS is still outstanding offenders. Right. The Watch House is still getting people told, fuck off, you white C. All this stuff's still going on. Yeah. It's all still happening. So, I mean, all that's still going on. So people still have to stay operationally.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And, and they did other, especially when the funeral was on, coppers from elsewhere come and relieve, and they'll do, GDs for our crews, similar to what happened in the last lot of shootings. You help each other out, and that's the way it's the way it should be too. But yeah, you're right. Things get back to normal for a lot of people, and it has to. And then it doesn't take long, and then people that are arrested, should have been more shot than Brett Forte. So then you go back to, there we go. That's the normal that we know. They want to be like that. So that's right. It doesn't last long.
No.
It doesn't last long.
No. Well, I think, Shilty, unless you've got another thing, I was just thinking what we're moving into, what we want to talk about next, probably in the next episode, is, righto, so now we're at inquest time. now we're going to the nitty gritty, and I know, we've obviously spoken offline that there was a lot of trauma that came from that process as well, and a lot of hurt and a lot of pain involved in that process.
Yeah.
And I think the intention, certainly from my point of view, I think Shilsey and I spoke previously, we just wanted to show that humanity of the incident, post-incident.
Yeah.
And then if you're happy, Cath, if you're happy to, we'll call it there, and then talk about what happened after that. So the inquest and what things happened there. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's important. There's one thing, like everything you spoke about there, Kath, and I know my mum listened. Like Damon and I spoke about our worst jobs, and nowhere near what you were talking about. But it's draining emotionally to talk about it, and it's good to have that break before you move on to something else as well. I think, yeah, because even she could hear Damon and I were struggling towards the end to actually to talk about it, because everything you're talking about is still emotional.
Of course it
Even,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
and,
draining, and when you go through, look, you're talking about the coronial process or different days, absolutely draining emotionally. It's and then you get that dull headache in your head, and it's just and you're tired as hell. It's just because it's heavy. Oh
Oh,
God,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I
it
couldn't agree. And
takes
yeah,
me
and I
out.
think that's what we can look at next time, and just try and explain that to the layman. I think the idea of us. I think we taught about our intent is to normalise the police force. That's the whole idea,
Mm.
and to show the human side of these experiences. I know people hear it in the news, and police today have shot and killed, blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, that's great. That's Billy has shot and killed somebody. Well, Billy's not a
Yeah,
murderer. Billy didn't go out that day to try and do that shit. Billy's going through hell right now. So,
Yeah, right.
and that,
And
and
mental
that's
health.
oh yeah, yeah, and I think that's our intent. So it's the
Yeah,
normalisation, and I think we've gone through that really human part of it. And I was shaking at one point there because I can just go, I know what you mean there. Like I can picture that, but I can also imagine I experienced it at this level. You were here, so it's like I know we're not on camera, but I'm using my
yeah,
hand higher, so it's a
yeah,
whole higher level of just what is going on. So yeah, look, Kath, I really appreciate that, because this can't be
yeah.
easy. I know it's 8 years, approaching 9 years ago. So, but still raw. It's still something you're never going to forget.
It sounds like a long time ago, but it's not.
No,
It's
bloody
no, it's
yesterday, no
not.
doubt.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
It's kind of not at all.
Yeah,
Um, and what you're saying is right, Damo, because the mental health of coppers, and you know, as you boys know and talk about all the time, the amount of trauma that police see. We police have to deal with that. Like, yeah, humanising it is really important, because then how do police deal with it so they can get up the next day and still function, or maybe they don't function for a while, and that's just the way it is.
yeah,
It's really
yeah,
important. Yeah, really important.
yeah. And look, hopefully we can flesh something out that, who knows what. Hopefully, someone a lot smarter than me can work out a way that we operate police, because you can't take the job away. Someone has to do this stuff. Someone has to go to child deaths. Someone has to go to road crashes. Someone has to investigate all this stuff. Someone has to confront armed offenders. Someone has to do that. Someone has to deploy overseas in the military and engage in absolute extreme mortal combat. So it has to be done, but we have to work out a way that we can try and keep those people together mentally. I don't know how to do it, but I think if we can really bring it out in the open, hopefully a smarter brain than mine can work it out.
Yeah, and have those conversations. That's exactly right.
Mm.
And the biggest thing that what I have learned, what you can't leave your mental health or how you are, you cannot leave that up to anyone else.
No.
You have to take that and own that, or it's up to your mates beside you, or it's up to you to make sure your mate's okay and have the conversation to
yeah,
take on your mate. You can't leave it up to anyone else to do. I mean, people, have a bit to say about police organisations around Australia, and yes, they have to do better, but it's up to you to look after yourself.
Oh,
in
for
your
sure.
mental health. You know, you have to own that. No one else can own that for you.
Yeah.
You own it and look out for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
gold, Kath. Well, Schulte, what do you reckon?
Yeah, mate, I reckon we can finish it off. Are we going to answer this question just to change it up a
Yeah.
bit? Or
So, yeah, if you want to introduce that and put the question to Kath, that'd be good. Yeah.
yeah, so
Bit of a side track, but that's okay. We've got Kath here, so we thought we'd tap into some more expertise.
well, that's exactly right because unfortunately everybody's heard everything we've got to say, Cass. So it'd be good to have some
Yeah.
intelligence in the conversation.
Oh,
But anyway, this is from a Chris or Christopher. He's basically a Kiwi. He's looking at joining the police. He's 35. Basically, he's lived life. He's had his kids and all that sort of stuff. And he was a firefighter for a few years when he was younger. But his question is, he's thinking of entering the police at the age of 37. And he said, would it be tough to keep up, like physically? Or would life knowledge could be a counterweight to help with the day to day working. So with his experience, would it I suppose compensate for lack of physical activity? I'm just going to before you answer, Kath, I'm just going to sit there and say, and I did send this to him, and I said, mate, basically between the age of 36 and 40 was the fittest I've ever been in my entire life. So so I think you can be fit. Mind you, I was in a dry community, so I couldn't drink alcohol, and there wasn't much drunk fit around, so I just did weights and basically ran all day, and did the job. But yeah, what do you reckon, Kath?
oh, look, I would say to Chris, definitely, you've still got so much to offer. 36, he's still got, what, 20, if he retires at 60, he's still got 23 years worth of years of working as a copper. And what was he? Had been a firefighter before.
Yeah, volunteer, I think, for like
Volunteer. I
yeah,
mean, that experience counts for a lot. Life experience in this job counts for a lot. I mean, there's a lot of police now that are really, really young, and you do worry about that. Wow, what life experience you have? Whereas someone like Chris at 35 or 36 um, has just got that little bit of edge and gets what life is like. He's had kids, he knows the hardships of that, and when there's a lot of DV, so he'll be able to take just his knowledge of life into different, investigating DVs and being a social worker sometimes to these people in their relationships. Yeah,
yeah,
no, definitely. As long as he keeps fit, and doesn't let himself go.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
So,
Not too
sorry.
far anyway. Yeah. So,
I,
Kath, I knew you'd say that. That's why we set you up to say it. It's just good to have it reinforced that people don't realise they go, oh, you got to be this super fit athlete. It's like, look, you have to be healthy. You have to be physically capable. But
Mm.
the overwhelming majority of the work that we do is talking and it's understanding and it's communicating and it's practical application of the law. And it's, like you just said, it's being a social worker. A lot
Yeah,
of
it
the time
is.
it's that.
That's right.
It's negotiating, understanding that people aren't always completely mentally healthy. Talking
Yeah,
to,
that's right.
it's just that, and that people of all walks of life develop that skill set. So yeah,
Mm.
it's to me the physicality is it's a bit of a challenge. Yeah, when you're a bit older, going through recruits, and you're doing that PT every day, and you've got to hit those standards. Yeah, fine, just do it. Just it's something you have to do, and it's hard. Good, get into it. Policing's hard.
Yeah, that's right. There's so much more to policing than just that's a small slither, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
everything you
absolutely.
said, in negotiating, problem solving,
Mm,
treating people with compassion,
mm.
laying down the law when you have to, all of that,
Yeah,
all
no,
those
couldn't agree more.
decision making, biggest thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, you got to be careful, Kath. You might end up a bloody regular on this show as well.
yeah. With answers like that,
Yeah,
holy.
really good. All right, so yeah, we a bit of a recap. So we've gone over like the post incident and just spoken about that, and it's once again, I know we've said it a few times, but Kath, we're really grateful for that, just to give that insight into such a high level critical incident. I think it's pretty rare to hear the real human story of someone who's been involved in what, in my view, is the absolute worst case that a copper can be involved in. So we're really grateful for that, and thanks very much for sharing your story with us in regards to
Thank
that. And
you,
we'll obviously continue on next week.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
No,
Appreciate it.
that's right. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. So, but anyway, I think we'll finish it off now, Damo, and
Yeah, wrap
we'll
it up.
see you all next week.